Hi, it's Wednesday. It's 3 o'clock. Welcome to Together Unlocked, brought to you as always by Together 2012. I'm Jude Gosling, artist and artistic director. With me in my home studio in Canning Town in Newham is our chair, the artist and campaigner Julie Newman. We're going to come back to us for some audio description and more information about what we'll be chatting about and covering on the show today. But first, as always, to the West Midlands, to the other end of our long virtual wheeled sofa for some introductions and audio description from them.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Wednesday. So, I am Robin Sojourner, Business Director at Together 2012 and co presenter of Unlocked. So, yeah, we are here in our West Midlands Sutton Coldfield studio, um, back to hiding from the weather, I'm afraid, after a couple of days of um, pretend spring, I think. I am sweatshirted again, which I'll describe in a moment. Just to give you the setting, as I say, we're in our studio in front of our lovely warming velvet studio curtains, which are, for any of you who were here on Monday, would have seen that the curtains have the additional decoration of recycled paper rosettes, which I believe Tracy Surgeon will be them talking about how they get made when we do craft on Friday. They're really, really effective. So on to me, I have uh, I think, floppy silver grey hair today. Um, I am, which is actually hiding my glasses, which are no rim black arm glasses, which in turn are in front of my blue eyes. I'm looking at them. I don't know why. One thing I do know, if I can't remember what's on my sweatshirt, I do know what color my eyes are. So anyway, and I'm clean shaven, and I am wearing a black hooded sweatshirt with a grey lining in the hood, and then on the left breast is the logo for Angry Fish Art and Empowerment Training, which is one of the other things I do as an artist.
Hi, I'm Josh Surgeoner. I'm a PhD student and co host of Together Unlocked. I have rather long blonde hair, bit of a ginger beard, and today I'm wearing a long sleeve, very dark blue t shirt that has a white stripe across the shoulders, I guess, kind of shoulder chest area. And it has my initials on one side, and then it has a crest on the other side, which I can describe if you'd like me to, but you can't really see it on the stream anyway.
No, I think that might be too much information. So, coming back to East London, like I say, my name's Jude Gosling. I'm a white woman with pale olive skin. I've got green eyes behind black plastic glasses. I've also got black plastic wrist braces. I have silver coloured jewellery. I have a hennaed, self styled corona crop, mercifully hidden under a purple cotton baseball cap. And I'm wearing a sort of lavender blue purple long sleeved t-shirt with a multicolored fleece over the top in shades of purple, blue and orange. I like to think that we look as if we're about to set off for a sail. It's certainly windy enough in East London today. So Julie, who are you? What do you look like?
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm the chair of Together 2012. Um, I was just thinking about the sail. I think it might be a bit too windy. I think we might get blown over.
Yeah, true.
Today I'm wearing a gold, mustardy gold little knitted hat, courtesy of a dear friend in Scotland. I like to think of it as a little gold crown, but I think I might be getting a little bit above myself with that. I've got gold and silver hair peeping out from underneath, as Josh is. We are both uncut. I have dark rimmed glasses. I have a green shirt, actually one of my favourite shirts. It's unbuttoned in the front, but it's long sleeved. And underneath, I have a purple long sleeve T-shirt, maintaining the women's colours of green and purple and not white. Although I suppose I'm white skinned, so I suppose that would go for it.
Yes, so our Monday show for International Women's Day is still up on our website, along with all of our previous shows. But of course, it's Women's Month, all of March, so we will be coming back to that again and again and again. I noticed on Twitter this morning, talking of women, you were posting because you were really quite angry about Piers Morgan and some of the media coverage this morning.
Yeah, well, thank you for picking that up. I was furious. I'll be honest with you. I don't often post anything on Facebook or Twitter about social media things. I don't really tend to get involved in them. But it struck me as outrageous that a woman who says that she had experienced mental health difficulties, including suicidal thoughts, asked for help, had direct experience of racism, can have that denied by a white, very privileged man who, how dare he? How dare any of us actually sort of challenge her experience? We should be praising her for going public with something that was actually quite difficult to talk about.
I was impressed with Diane Abbott when she was talking about, Diane Abbott apparently gets more than half of all of the abuse in social media is directed at just this one MP. And she said there's this image of women of colour, of black women, as you're strong, you can cope with it. You're the strong matriarch, you're the person who holds the family together and goes out to work and does all these things. And she said it's such a damaging stereotype. And it comes from slavery, where somehow women of colour are less sensitive than the rest of us, which is very, very clearly nonsense. In fact, I would say as a lesbian that the more discrimination you experience, actually, the harder it becomes to deal with.
Well, your spirit gets a little bit worn down. There was a woman called Sojourner Truth, who was one of the very first women to speak out for women's emancipation, and she had been a slave in the 1850s in the States, in the northern part of the States, and she took a white slave owner to court successfully to get custody of her son. It was a remarkable thing to have done, and she continued to campaign actively all through her life. She changed her name to Sojourner Truth, and in fact, the one of the Mars exploration vehicles was called Sojourner on in tribute to her. But she, when you think about everything that woman went through, yes, she was strong, but it was born out of necessity. It wasn't born out of choice. In the same way that she had been born into slavery, that wasn't out of her choice. And I think Diane Abbott is absolutely right. It's not often I say that, but I do actually. I'm completely behind her on this one. We must never ever minimize the struggle, the effort, the cost of other women's bravery, or anyone else's bravery for that matter. Whether they're, I'm not someone who goes in for the tragic but brave thing. I think we as disabled people, we all have our own paths to travel. But at the same time, some things take a lot of guts.
Well, it's interesting you picked up the tragic but brave because, as quite a number of people know, in the 20th century, darling, it was so 20th century, I was a journalist, and as part of my journalism career, I chaired the NUJ Equality Council, and I was a member of the NUJ's Ethics Council, and really did an awful lot around reporting standards. And, believe it or not, the vast majority of journalists take their code of conduct very seriously. But tragic but brave was the way that disabled people used to get treated in the 20th century. And we used to think that was a bad thing. And then everything got much, much worse. And I think what's happening now since social media is, instead of people saying, well, look, if you wrote down hate speech on a piece of paper and shoved it through somebody's door, you would rightfully be prosecuted. But somehow you can send that over the internet to a complete stranger, and it's seen as perfectly okay. And then it's become okay to get to that point where, without any evidence, you can say, this woman is a liar, I will never believe anything she says, which is what Piers Morgan finished with today. Now, when I was a journalist, you would have to have some evidence for that. But I know, Robin, you were talking as well about how, and I think it's been very much in the 21st century, disabled people have been game for anything in terms of, we've been the ones who the benefit sheets, the this, the that. But you were saying you'd had a very difficult experience with the media back in the 20th century.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, and first, I want to reiterate what you've both been saying about, um, it's the experiences we have. We build an arsenal of coping strategies that doesn't make us any the less susceptible to the bullying that goes on, and so that kind of leads really well into a tale of awful journalistic behaviour. When Josh was one, it might have been two, but whichever it was, so it would have been 96 or 97. So yes, in the 20th century, um, we were approached by the local paper who decided they wanted to do an article on how great it was that a Paralympic swimmer and his disabled, as a disabled Paralympic swimmer, and his wife, who was a disabled person, had um, you know embraced family life, had a baby, and he was coming up. It was his birthday, so they came around. Took lots of human interest photos, stories, talked to us all about our past, how we got to where we were. We thought this is great, lovely. And we allowed them to take pictures of Josh in his little yellow push along car, which he claims it was really cool even then.
Yes, I'll stand by that claim as
Um,
well. Thank you.
So and that was in the week, and so the weekend of Josh's birthday, we'd actually gone down to my parents' house, came back on the Sunday because it was the Sunday Mercury, which was the local paper as it was. Um, looking to find a lovely article and see how they'd done it. And to our absolute heartbreak, um, we opened it up to read an article that was not about that, though they absolutely kind of totally took the pictures of this happy babe, toddler in a car having a birthday, but used it as a launch point to say, well, why are disabled people allowed to be having babies?
Oh,
Why were they allowed to, why does the ethics, health and ethics council allow two disabled people to use genetic services? I mean, as it was in the end, it was a natural conception, but that's not the point. It had been part of our history, was that we'd looked at IVF, and it was absolutely awful. And there were, it was just like, so there was absolutely no integrity. And the worst part about it, from our point of view, was that the journalist that came was a deaf woman,
oh,
and so you just felt like it was bad enough that it had happened, but that a fellow disabled person
mm.
had thought it was okay. Now, whether they didn't have the editorial oversight, we don't know.
Yes, and I think that's something to really warn people about, if you're doing press today, because certainly Tomato and Paula from Definitely Theatre have been attacked in the press over and over again as deaf parents, and that's much, much more recent. Yes, I think it's important to remember that certainly in print, because it's much harder to kind of distort things if you've been interviewed, but not impossible if they record new voiceovers. But in print, if a sub editor or an editor looks at that and says, we don't want to be promoting this, it's disgusting, disabled people having children, then it just all gets rewritten. So actually, it's not enough to get on with the journalist who's approached you. I always work on the basis that any article is going to be inaccurate. That anything I contribute to is never going to come out with exactly what I said in the way that I said it. But I can live with that mostly by not reading it much either. But we will move on. So coming up today, as always, on a Wednesday, we go for a virtual nature walk with Merlot, the assistant's dog, in the woodlands of Norfolk. That's coming up around 3:30. We have our Clockwork Paralympics for the right of one of our teddy bears to wear a medal for the next week as they take part in virtual bear hunt. We have a gaming and sports report coming up with Josh and more. But before that, on a Wednesday morning, we have our pop-up poetry club as part of our year-round clubs program. Now, our clubs are open to any disabled person and anyone they want to have with them who can access us. And at the moment, that's by telephone and by Zoom, so you do not even have to live in the UK. Wednesday, the pop-up poetry club is run. It's really the most similar club to how we ran them before, in that most of our clubs on Zoom have been shortened from 2 hours to 1 hour because of screen fatigue. But the pop-up poetry club is its usual hour and a half, and it just takes place by phone. But what happened today, Julie?
Glitch, big glitch, gremlins in the system. We have a bespoke telephone system that we commissioned specifically for this, so that nobody has to pay for their phone calls, so that we carry the cost. But it isn't standard. Let's just put it like that. So we had to have one created for us, and it didn't work at all. So our guys, Alison, international artist Alison Marchant, and Noel, who's our support worker, our engagement support worker, had to cancel the group session and encourage and support individual poets to create work independently. And I'm really pleased. We've got some nice poems for today.
Yes, we have. I mean, what would usually happen at the pop-up poetry club is Noel would make the phone calls before 10:30, add you to a group call. You join us with your cup of tea, biscuit, or whatever else you might want to bring with you. People share poems that they've found or written in the previous week or found by somebody else. Then they ring off, write poems on a topic, and come back again with another cup of tea to share them. Today's topic was the park, and I'm going to start with Taylor Henville's poem, which has just that title, The Park. Children playing, always to extremes. Run as fast as you can till you can't breathe. Graze your knee and scream until the next distraction. Climb a tree, scuff your shoes, get dirt under your nails and on your face. Throw hula hoops in the air and run around in circles with no care for the consequences. That's a great image of the park, Taylor, and it has some great memories as well. And well, I mean, I think at least children have been able to get to the park, but I like that as well, that it wasn't really about social interaction at all. It was just that sort of physical connection with the outside world and the park.
Can I just ask, she didn't mean the little round sort of crispy things, did she, when she said throw your hula hoops in the air?
Well, she could have done, Julie.
She could have.
That both of those things work equally well, I think.
One is easy
although
to
you'd
catch in
get
your mouth,
attacked
though.
by, I was going to say you'd get attacked by a lot of pigeons if you
Squirrels.
were throwing your hula hoops in the air. Yes, and squirrels too. In fact, you've got a poem that you wrote in 2016 when we had a residency in the park. We have our main artistic program is our winter festival. We always have a festival in Disability History Month. It runs 4 or 5 weeks. And last year it was digital, and all of that is still online to enjoy. We also have a Summer Together program, which is effectively extra activities to the club's programs. And in we say 2016, I thought it was summer 2017, but anyway, one of those years we spent the summer in West Ham Park, well, Memorial Park, West Ham, to be a little bit more accurate, because what we call West Ham Park is known by a different name altogether. But I digress. We had a whole month in the park. We painted outside, we wrote poems outside, we did installations outside. And this is your one about your assistance dog, Precious, in the park, isn't it?
It is. Precious was thrilled to have a month in the park. She just was so happy. In fact, so was Jazzy, your little assistance dog. And she liked to join in. Because she's terribly sociable, she joins in practically everything when we're together. But she's got a very limited vocabulary, so words aren't really her big thing. So I took it upon myself to speak for her, which is always a bad thing to do. But you never know. She might have appreciated it. She didn't seem to bother actually about it. So it's called Precious in the Park. Park, park. Let's go to the park. Let's go to the park right now. Shall we go to the park? Shall we go to the park? I want to bark. Shall we go to the park? Park, park. I remember the park. Let's go to the park. It's getting dark. Can we please, please, please go to the park now? Park, park. We're here at the park. Oh, West Ham Park, my favourite park. I love the park. Oh, park, park. What a wonderful park. Space to run and play. Oh, park, park, the best of parks. It is a glorious day.
Thank you, Julie. Robin, I know you have some of Angus's poems from that same summer, if you'd like to share one of those.
Okay, I think we'll go with the one that's about the park. So this is from Angus, and this is called New Upton Park. Memorial Park to Upton Park to Lizzie Park. The new Berlin, so plastic, so loud. It's so peaceful here till the dogs see the squirrel. Sounds of angry crowds, now the laughter of children. Screaming babies break the silence. Kids for a quid? Can't afford one. Come on, you irons, the travellers of Newham. Build me a ship, or cut down my garden. No more blood, where once was all claret, a season of stillness, away from the chaos.
And just to interpret that for anybody who's not in East London, Memorial Park, West Ham, was actually the very first football ground for West Ham United when they were the works team for Thames Ironworks, who were the shipbuilders just down the road, in fact, on the same site where Julie has her studio. So Upton Park was then the first stadium that was built. So they moved from Memorial Park to Upton Park, which is where Julie lives. And then to Julie's huge delight, of course, at that period, they were just moving up to the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, or Lizzie Park, as the West Ham United fans have now renamed it. Julie, you've got one from Dawn Barber, haven't you?
I have. Dawn's one of our regular barbers and has been a volunteer with us since virtually
Regular
the beginning.
poets, you mean?
That's the one.
Dawn Poet's been one of our regular
Sorry.
barbers, but
Yeah.
she's not been cutting our hair very
I could
recently.
do with Dawn being a barber.
We've also just been love bombed by a large black
Sorry,
cat.
that's what distracted me. I could see he was poised and ready to jump. He got very interested when I was reading Precious's poem, and I think he got jealous.
Anyway, this is another one from this morning, isn't it?
Yes, Dawn Barber, the park. A walk in the park clears your mind from all the clutter. It's better than toast and butter. The gentle breeze upon your face, seeing the squirrels running up and down the trees, makes me happy and smile. Seeing children playing and their mums watching over them, you may say, "What a lovely day," to someone you know, as you leave the park on a high. So now it's time to say goodbye.
And I think you've got one from Glory Sango, Josh.
We do indeed. So this is Park by Glory Sengo. When I was in the park, I sat down quietly on the bench. I was eating a birthday cake, also chicken and chips. Then I was full up. When the food went down, I decided to get on the swing.
Thank you, Glory. That brings back all sorts of memories of Glory turning up to Pop-Up Poetry Club, bearing extra food for everybody else. It's always been actually central to what we do that we always have free food and drink of some kind. So consequently, all of the clubs tend to run on hot drinks and biscuits, and on the evening events we give out sweets, we give out crisps. But yes, Glory would often turn up with an extra layer of refreshments for people. This is from Crystal Peasy, and it's a more serious poem, but it's also called The Park. I like to go to the park, especially in the summertime. I like to play different games. I try so hard to keep myself fit. I do a lot of things to keep myself fit. I work myself very hard as I'm interested in keeping myself fit and healthy. Because if I don't keep myself fit and healthy, I will become very ill. and I may need to get a different size wheelchair, and that would make me very upset as it's a struggle to find the right size wheelchair. And I think that really underlines the importance of outdoor urban spaces to people who don't have their own gardens, and how important the parks have been, through lockdown and beyond. But it's always those practical things, isn't it? That sort of, well, I don't want to put on weight and I don't want to lose weight, not for any other reason than because it's so difficult to try and get a wheelchair that fits at the best of times. Julie, you have one from Alison Marchant, which I'm not sure whether that's written today, or I know she did several of these like installations in the residency.
Oh, yes, she did, didn't she? Yeah, she did a wonderful installation. Of course, she's an international artist. This is called Sounds in and Around the Park by Alison Marchant. A distant car, seagulls flapping their wings and squawking, children laughing and playing, splashing through fountains, a squeaky swing, people chattering, mellow murmurs, aircraft overhead going to city airport, a bike rolling across gravel, panting joggers, small sparrows tweeting in the trees. The wind rustles the leaves, electric wheelchair, dogs barking, light rain gently beating on the cafe window.
You'll notice they've all got barking dogs in them. When Judy was doing that kind of bark, bark, because yes, park, park was more like bark, bark. And I don't think they'd ever seen squirrels before. You've got one now from Pies and Malik, haven't you?
I have, I have indeed. This is Park by Pies and Malik. As far as the eyes can see, colourful flowers in between bushes and tree. Ahead is a wide stretch of land full of greeneries, where mothers with children in buggies, sportsmen, teenagers, and elderlies, disabled and vulnerable people go some days, walking slowly on the carpet looking space, happily admiring the park scene at their own pace, finding the place to sit and relax by the fountain or statues made of wax, to relax the mind and comfort the body, as the park does not charge any money. Lovers and youngsters spare their time to repent all their unfairness and crime for others, is the place to ease their feelings on mind, with big smile listening to the birds chirping, drinking from the fountain, singing sweet songs while happily nesting, lessening the confusion and restless feeling. The park is the place for relaxing and to retreat, for fresh air and less heat. At the park, we dream of the promises to stay healthy and glorious, to be positive and happy in serving the community.
Oh, thank you, Pizer. And I hope you are also beginning to feel better finally, because Pizer's somebody whose wheelchair was not repaired and consequently she fell out of it and had a very bad accident before Christmas. Robin, I think you have another of Angus's.
I do. I will just scroll to it. Sorry, I was reading the other poem. I like to read them as you read them. So this one, again, is from Angus Mackenzie Davey, is called "And the Wind Blows Again." The wind blows. Plastic bags swept up, aloft and away. A glue sniffer's nightmare. Darkness has risen, but falls again. As sun breaks through, the air stops moving. A moment of clarity, of stillness and reason. But the window is fleeting, and the wind blows again.
Oh, yes, it was a strange summer, the summer of the residency, because, of course, one of the impacts of the government cuts over the last 10 years on local councils and therefore parks is Memorial Park had a whole sort of friends group who had all sorts of growing projects and different projects and so on and so forth. And all of that was just ended because Serco are now contracted to do the park maintenance. So this final poem is one I wrote then. Actually, it's my almost final poem, and it's called Park Maintenance. Dandelions raise their heads to the sun. Daisies nod in the breeze. Insects hover, darting at the pollen. Leaves push jubilantly through the grass. Creatures scamper and slither in their shade. With a roar, the blades come from nowhere, chopping and cutting, slicing and shredding, ripping and tearing. When all that's left is silence, a satisfied voice says, "There, it's tidy now." And that was very much what it was like, wasn't it? One day we had all this beautiful greenery around us, and the next minute Serco had cut the grass because that was the time of the contract and it was too hot and everything was just brown and dead, and every single piece of life had gone. So my final poem is actually a haiku, and it's called Words. Words are not enough to name the greens in the park. See them for yourself. So I thought that was a happier note to end on. And of course, yeah, my heart goes out to everybody who, like us, hasn't left the house for 12 months, but hasn't had their own little bit of green space like we have had. But one of the things we have been doing is sharing our green space, and fortunately now sharing Merlot the assistance dog's green space by sending the dogs out with cameras to show us how the seasons are changing and what the outside world is like. So this is what I suspect is going to be quite a rainy walk from Merlot, who's shielding in a Norfolk barn with Stella and Hannah from Act Up Newham, our associate drama company. I'm going to pop it on the screen, and Julie, as always, is going to do some audio description.
Oh my goodness, it is indeed. What we have in front of us before we start is a very muddy, puddly path with greenness on each side, grass and weeds, etc. There's a field on the left, which I can barely see because of the rain splashes, but it looks to me as if it's been ploughed. On the right, there's at the top of a little hillock, there's running along the path, there's a wire fence with weeds. And Merlot is, you can see his little Labrador head and his collar. He's stopping and looking around. He's moved over to the side. I don't think he likes the puddles very much, so he's walking to the right and walking through the grass. Now he's moved over to the field. Having said that, he's gone straight into the field. Now he's turning around and looking for his people. Yes, they're there, so he's carrying on. I'm not too sure where he's going now, except he seems to be heading for some foliage and going round in a circle and shaking himself. He's probably being dripped on. But my goodness, that path looks very, very muddy. And indeed, the foliage looks very wet. And indeed, his people look very wet and walking very carefully through the mud and the puddles.
He can't understand why they've gone out.
No, I don't think he can. He's allowed them to go ahead. And he's very, very politely going round to the side so that he doesn't get in their way. He's being guided by them, actually. He said, perhaps we'll go back now. There's a gate. Look, that goes to the little woods. And indeed, they're going back through the little woods. And Merlot seems to be quite happy to follow them. He's gone through the gate. They're closing the gate. His little head looks quite wet, actually. I suspect he's going to shake his ears clean. And he's leading the way. This time he's leading the way through the woods. Yes, there he goes. A little
But
shake
it's
of the head.
noticeable how much less muddy it is when you haven't got the tyre trails, because a lot of the mud in the field seemed to be where tractors and things had gone, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think he's going at speed now. I think he's very happy to go home. I think the trees and the leaves help to keep the mud down. He's gone back to get them. He says, really, it's time to go home now. And he's going across the leaves through the barren trees. There's some nice bulbs that have come up to the right and the left. He's going much faster than his people are. So he paused and he's waiting for them.
And if you're interested in seeing how how the whole outlook has changed, you were saying yourself, we know more about how the seasons are changing in Norfolk than we do in Newham. So all of those are on our highlights and links page, which you can find on our website, www.together2012.org.uk. go to the Together Unlocked TV page, go to the pull down menu, or just follow the link. About 5 o'clock, we will have all of the highlights and links up from today, including copies of the poems and copies of that video that you can just enjoy that walk again in your own time. And if you scroll on through, there's a walk every Wednesday that you can also enjoy. So we move on again now to the second half of our show, which on a Wednesday is devoted to a bit of fun and games. So before we get on to sports and gaming, we're going to have our weekly Clockwork Paralympics. So the way this works is I record the race in the morning. Our fellow hosts in the West Midlands choose a side. Um, that sounds more like football teams, but in fact, it's literally a side. Is it going to be my left hand on the right side of the screen or my right hand on the left side of the screen? And whoever wins, their teddy bear gets to wear a medal for the next week. So let's introduce our aspiring medal wearers for this week. First, over to the West Midlands.
Right, well, we have run out of teddies, but not cuddly toys. So today, I'm run out of space. Today, I'm introducing you to Lucy the Rhino, who is going to continue the charge for success of the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth team.
That is an awful pun.
Thank you. Oh, Julie, you're muted.
No, it's all right. I
Oh.
needed to say something to Julie. But I'll say it to everybody now. Julie, if you straighten your chair up again, you'll stop disappearing from the camera. Thank you. So we are. I have to explain to you that the virtual bear hunt around the world is for children to have a look in people's windows and on screens for teddy bears, not just cuddly toys. But our teddy bear for the virtual bear hunt is Ted Fringe. And Ted Fringe comes from Edinburgh. And Ted Fringe said he's not really convinced that all these festivals are going to take place this summer, but he's decided to pop out and get all the latest gossip just in case. And in fact, I went to a wonderful women only meeting of the Association of Festival Organisers on Monday night for International Women's Day. And yeah, I have to say the outlook for the festival season is no better than we were talking about last week. But Ted Fringe, just like Live Nation, very optimistic and therefore also thinks he's going to win the race. Now, Josh is going to do some audio description, so I'm going to pop the thing up in a minute. And Josh will just do the basic audio description before the race starts and then commentate. Right side or left side of the screen?
We're going right side of the screen, so released from your left hand. So we are back in a familiar Colosseum. For those of you that have watched the show before, we have Jew's Landing. We've got some green banisters on the right with some kind of rope edging along the bottom, and we have our kind of blue mosaic flooring. And we have green on the left and orange on the right, and we are off. So orange appears to be going across green. Green's actually stayed straight for once, but I do believe they are now going to be disrupted in their attempt to race towards the finish line by the orange caterpillar representing Birmingham 2022. And I do believe, as steward inquiries are not a thing in the Clockwork Paralympics, as we have lost many a race due to the lack of steward's inquiry, I do believe that despite our blatant obstruction, we have once again won this week's race. So yes, we have the orange caterpillar just slightly in front of green. So we have once again been successful. Go.
Fortunately, our Teddy can cope.
Oh,
I don't know.
And so we will award Lucy her medal, which is a bronze medal from the
2017 European Wheelchair Basketball Championships. letting the side down slightly with it being bronze, but it's the only international medal I've got, so we'll have to deal with
Yeah.
bronze.
It's a bit good.
Fancy only having one international medal.
I know, it's shocking.
To be honest, in this house, it's a bit of a letdown. To be honest, I need
I
to
know,
I need
I
to get
know.
my act together.
Just before we move to gaming and sport, um, only because you'd mentioned festivals, they did announce yesterday that the music festival in East London, which is it All Points East or something like that, is happening in August. So they've announced that it is fully going. It's going in whatever form it takes. You should be having a full-on music festival in East London.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that in Newham anyway, but I think just very briefly, because we can come back to this on Friday, but what it comes down to ultimately is you can make all the plans you like, but your local council will make the final decision. And your local council will make the final decision about how many people can come in and if the event can go ahead. And it doesn't matter if you sold X number of tickets. If they say only Y number can come in, that's your problem. I think it's a bit foolish, to be honest. I think there are event organisers who are in danger of going bankrupt and they're kind of putting everything on a final turn of the dice. I don't think that's a very responsible thing to do at all. I mean, we still haven't made an official decision for Together 2012, but I can't see us opting for anything other than digital over the winter, certainly. And if we do anything over the summer, it will be under very, very careful circumstances. We certainly wouldn't make a commitment now. I mean, I think what's really disturbing is the fact that we have to remember that the virus we had last summer is not the virus we have now. And the virus we have now is 70% more infectious. And they believe at least 20%, 30%, even higher, greater mortality. You know, there was a considerably much larger number of people who've died with what's now known as the UK variant. So, yeah, I would save you money. If you want to buy a festival ticket, buy one for next year would be my very firm advice. So, talking about availability of tickets, I understand that it's still no clearer with the Olympics, but I've seen a lot of articles saying international spectators don't seem likely.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen probably the same as you, kind of speculations and people popping up to write an article that it's not going to happen. Um, and whilst that may be absolutely correct, um, until the IOC actually announce something either way, um, it you can yeah, everyone can speculate, but ultimately it's going to be what the IOC decide. I mean, I know that I wasn't going to talk about it, but it fits into it. I know that there's a sailing test event in Tokyo has been kind of given the green light as they start to lift some of those border restrictions. Um, I'm not entirely sure when that's due to happen. I know they've said that the decision on that is supposed to be happening by the end of March. Um, but whether how that sailing test event happens or not, or how well that happens, may well be a kind of impacting factor on that decision. Because they might say no fans in March, but actually by the time it gets to July, who knows where we're going to be 6 months from now? They might be like, actually, it's magically disappeared. We're all fine. Not that that's going to happen, but it's who knows. And I think it's one of those things that's going to be fluid up until about a week before the games on who and how many people are going to be allowed in, and if they'll be allowed in. So
Yeah, again, don't spend your money on a ticket to Tokyo right at this moment.
yeah, and unless you're being taken by a by the team, don't plan to be there. Um, but in terms of some other sport as well on sport, um, it was International Women's Day on Monday. So the IPC, which is the International Paralympic Committee, announced their International Women's Day Recognition Awards on Monday, which is a series of awards they've been running for a few years. And it has three categories. So it has a builder, it's called Builder, which is around kind of women in leadership roles and helping structure all sorts of things on that side of it. There's an award called the Next Generation Award, which is for the next generation athlete. It's fairly self-explanatory, that one. And then the final one is a kind of National Paralympic Committee or International Federation award for an NPC or a federation that's doing a lot around women's sport. I won't go into detail on who the three winners were in those three categories. Anyone interested, they can go and kind of read. I'll put a link to an article um, that kind of will give far better explanations of the three than I'll be able to fit in a 5 minute brief. Also around kind of how what they're awarded for, as well as why those people have earned those awards. Um, so I think that's it, unless you've got anything on gaming. There's not on sports. Sorry, there's not a huge amount of sport news really going on at the moment. It's been a bit of a slow news week.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I've got, I mean, and I know we obviously seem to be gravitate towards swimming, but you know, it's the sport we know most about.
Well, to be honest, it's the most popular sport that, well, people don't even think of it as a sport.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
often think of it as a hobby. But I think in terms of how many people engage with swimming, and particularly disabled people, it is the most popular sport. So go on, our very own Angry Fish Paralympian.
Well, it's just that there is going to be, and there's another swimming national stroke international level competition happening in the end of March, which is involving Paralympic and Olympic hopefuls. These are leading up into what will be the Paralympic and Olympic trials in April. So that's it's showing that something's going on there. And interestingly, also with the return to school this week, then one of the very few sporting activities that is allowed to be happening is actually swimming in school. So if you are lucky enough to go to a school with a swimming pool and it's all operating, then actually swimming is happening in school. And I know it is actually happening because one of our own swimmers yesterday was doing water polo practice. So they are in water, which is great. I mean, sad for everyone else, but
Yeah,
it's
I mean, I haven't got my head round. Well, I think a lot of people haven't. Boris's roadmap, as it were. If everything goes according to plan, and of course that makes me laugh just to think about it. When would ordinary swimming pools and swimming clubs like the one you coach go back?
12th of April.
yeah. There's
For people, for non-adults, it's 12th of April. Adults, I think, is the 17th of May.
It's
For club swimming. So on the 12th of April, swimming pools and gyms and leisure centres open. So are due to open, I should say. So from that day, any under 18 club swimming, and there's cut-offs around when you're 18. You can find it online. Can do club activities. Over 18s can't do club activities, but they can just go to a pool themselves and swim, or go to a gym and work out. Why they can do a public session and not a club one, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense, but there we go. But yeah, in terms of for children, it's the 12th of April. For adults at the moment, I believe it's the 17th of
and
May.
well, there's a meeting on the 18th of March, from the swimming side of it, which I think at that point they will probably issue their up-to-date guidance on what returning to the pool is going to mean. And it may be, for example, like last time, that although adults in general weren't allowed to participate in organised training after the last lockdown, disabled athletes were,
Yeah.
whether they were adults or young
not.
or not. Yeah. So it is a little like everything else. It's a little bit up in the air as to exactly what's going to happen, but fingers crossed.
Yeah. Are they
12.
treating organised adult swimming as if it was an outdoor sport? Because, like you said, I mean, I can't see the difference between arranging to swim at the same time as your friends, so you can do a bit of surreptitious socialising in the pool, and being part of a well organised club where hopefully you might have the discipline not to hang out together.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. yeah, you can go and swim in a public session that in theory doesn't have any demands or controls on social distancing, but you can't go to a club organized session that has a COVID liaison officer that's there to shout at you if you get inside 2 meters, and a coach there telling you what to do and make sure everyone's apart. And yeah, it doesn't make a huge amount of
Yeah,
sense,
I
but
mean,
that's unfortunately it's the situation we're in.
whether
So
sorry, Josh, whether they're laboring on some illusion that if adults go to non-coached sessions they won't work hard and won't breathe hard, I've no idea. I mean, because it seems to be about that side of thing, you know.
Oh yeah, that really helps me to explain it. Thank you. We'll move and let Josh move on to gaming where we've all got a bit more control. But just to introduce yet another cat, this is a small tabby called Dorcas. In
No.
this, oh no, this is a small tabby
Jinx.
called Dolly, also known as Jinx. Dorcas is one that looks virtually identical, but is hopefully still locked in the office downstairs. Under our pull down menu on our website, www.together2012.org.uk, you can also find photographs of all the animals that appear deliberately or not on the show, including the assistance dogs Precious and Merlot, who actually go out and do camera work for us. But without hopefully further interruptions, Josh, what news have you got on gaming?
well, today is apparently Mario Day. I didn't know this until I saw it. I mean, obviously, but I mean, I saw it today. Um, that yeah, March 10th is Mario Day because it's MAR 10. Is yeah, some marketing person was really proud of themselves when they came up with that. I think. Um, but I know we were talking a few weeks ago. Julie, you were playing Mario Kart Tour, which is the kind of iPhone, iPad version of Mario Kart. And then there's also Super Mario Run, which again, it's a kind of iPhone game that is it's Mario running basically, and then you tap to jump, and you can do back jumps and spin jumps and all sorts of things. Um, and it's kind of designed off some of the levels from kind of the original Super Mario game, so the ones that people be really familiar with, that kind of grass with all the pipes and things. I think they're both free. Are you shaking your head to not knowing that? I don't know how. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I think they're both free, and they're both great fun, and kind of really really simple, kind of one finger operated games.
Oh, well, that's always good to hear. How old is Mario? I mean, I'm trying to remember. I had some kind of games console in the early to mid 90s, and I'm sure we had Mario.
Um,
Yeah, you would have. Because it was
according
around
to
then.
the oh, gone. According to the article about Mario Day, it says that this year the franchise is also celebrating its 36th anniversary,
Mm.
with Super Nintendo World set to open in Japan. So 36 years.
So 1995.
No,
No,
Yeah.
85.
85.
85, yeah.
I can't
And
believe you got that wrong,
I,
given that 95 was the year I was born, and I'm definitely not 36.
I could never get the hang of this little running person. I just, it never appealed to me because however hard I tried, he kept crashing into things.
Yeah, that's the one thing about Super Mario Run is you don't control him running. He's got a mission to go right, and he will go right regardless of what you do. But yeah, you have to kind of time the jumps and things.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think one of the reasons we've embraced Mario again on this show is just that whole kind of tiny minority of games that aren't violent. And I appreciate that they're only aesthetically violent and visually violent, but you're still just blowing stuff up. And it's kind of nice to have things that are a bit different and have lasted so long. But I particularly like the fact that they're free. Do they have them for the Android as well?
I don't know. I've only seen them as iPhone, or like discussed as iPhone games. So not having an Android, I don't know.
But we'll
Um,
check that out and put that up on the highlights and links page. And if there is a link, well, if there's one available for Android, we will let you know. And Mario belongs on Nintendo Wii, doesn't he?
well,
And
Nintendo on their various consoles, yeah.
so
Um,
if you haven't got a Nintendo console, definitely look for the free versions if you want to reacquaint yourself with Mario. What else have you got for us, Josh?
um, well, I've been playing. It's not a new game. It came out in November, but it was just added to the kind of Xbox Game Pass, which is a subscription service you talked about quite a lot. But it means that because I pay like £7 a month or whatever it is, um, I can download any game on it for free. So that came on last week, I think. So I've been playing a game called Dirt 5, which is a kind of rally racing game. Um, and some of the I've played the original one, whenever that came out like 10 years ago or something. Um, and it's dropped some of the simulation in the newest one. It's a lot more kind of arcadey. In kind of being able to drive, it's a lot easier to learn how to do it. So for someone like Dad that's rubbish at simulation games, he's trying to have a great time. Um, but yeah, I mean that's super fun, and especially kind of the ice racing tracks and how to drift cars around frozen lakes. It's just good fun. Um, but yeah, again, if you have Game Pass, it's entirely free. Um, so it's well worth paying the £7 rather than the kind of 40 odd quid that it cost you to buy
Yeah,
buy the game.
we've got the equivalent, haven't we, for the PS4? And I'd much rather put the money into the older games and have a much bigger choice. Not that we've still made a huge amount of progress, it has to be said, but I think again the driving ones really appeal because particularly if you're shielding, it's that sense of bigger horizons, isn't it? And sort of being active and getting out and about and
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's not a huge amount of people that had played it either because I was doing some time trials earlier to try it out, and I'm currently ranked fourth in the world on one of the tracks. Um, Admittedly, at the time of doing it, there was only 9 people on the leaderboard, but I'm still claiming I'm fourth in the world. So there we go.
Just really quickly, and we can come back to it next week when now I've remembered. But the idea of non-violent games, um, is that Emily has a game, and is it called Unravel?
Yeah, Unravel and
And
Unravel 2
basically it's this tiny little character who carries a
is made of wool.
is made of wool, and it's kind of very two-dimensional. So you're literally only ever going across the screen, but you're traveling a world through ponds, climbing up things. It's a well, I don't know what sort of game you would
It's a
describe it as, but it's actually
puzzle platform.
yeah, but it's actually it's really engaging. There's no, I mean, yeah, if you fall in the water, you can drown in the kind of what does happen in games, but other than that, it's not. You're not. There's no shooting. There's no any of that kind of stuff. It's just kind of I think actually from a kind of well-being perspective, it's kind of one of those games where you're just focusing on this little tiny person that you've got to take wool across the or make your way across the world by attaching bits of wool and swinging on them and jumping off and landing on a log to float across a puddle, and it's just really good.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think you've absolutely cracked it. It's about well-being, isn't it? Whatever that looks like, whether that's socializing with other people online because you're all playing games together, whether it's about focusing on a tiny piece of wool and ignoring everything else that's going on in your life for a bit. Gaming can be great for well-being, although of course, as we say for artists, what a fantastic source of work, whether you're designing, doing the artwork, doing the costumes, doing the acting. Don't forget, if you're looking for a career in the arts, gaming is a great place to go to. We're coming towards the end of our show. On Friday, we will be back as usual and we'll be dressing up to go out to stay in. This is something we've been doing for almost 12 months now. Following the example of New Zealand, who are a good example to follow for anything to do with COVID, they used to have formal Fridays where they dressed up as if to go out to the opera. We dress up to go out to stay in to do anything real or imaginary. We'd love to have your photos and videos as well. Just because you're not going out is not a reason not to dress up. We will also have something for the weekend where we recommend things for you to do online and offline from home, almost all of which are free. And we have Art Club with Tracy Sturgeoner, where we'll be looking at recycled crafts. And in particular, as Robin said at the beginning of the show, how to make the International Women's Month rosettes from junk mail. What a good thing to do with your junk mail rather than just put it straight from the postbox into the recycling bin. So we'll look forward to seeing all of you on Friday. The show will be edited, the recording will be up about 7 o'clock, and as with all of our shows, remain online for you to enjoy. The highlights and links page will be up at about 5 o'clock. So it's goodbye from East London.
And it's goodbye from the West Midlands.
Bye.
Bye.